Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul.
I'm Dave.
And I am Justin.
This week we're talking about the Season 5 premiere, Buffy vs. Dracula.
Quite honestly, I'm amazed that they finally got to this. I mean, you make a show about the Vampire Slayer, and you don't bother bringing in the really big, famous one until now?
Well, you can't really do it too early on.
Nah, that's true.
You have to wait at least a couple of seasons, I think.
Nah, that's true. Honestly, with sort of going into this episode, it's like, this is a decent enough time, despite the fact that it's probably not any sort of real great way to start a story. It's kind of teetering on the line of, it's a great idea that we can supposedly go with, or we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for supposed big bads or fancy things that we can do for episodes.
It's very much a way to introduce the season and some new characters.
And give a plot point, I guess, as well. How there's darkness in Buffy.
Yeah.
And her power.
Yeah. Something that won't be resolved until Season 7.
Because of course it won't.
Because that's when we'll actually get a proper history of the Slayer.
Yeah, we only get a taste.
Yeah. We will find out where the Slayer comes from. But that won't be for a while.
Blah.
Right.
So, this episode originally aired September 26th, 2000. This episode attracted 5.8 million viewers. We actually have viewer numbers for Season 5 again.
Hooray!
So, in this episode, unable to sleep, Buffy goes out to patrol the cemetery, and after staking a vampire, she returns to bed with Riley. The next day, Buffy and Riley play around at the beach until Willow magically ignites the barbecue, and a sudden storm forces them to flee, and they all seek shelter from the rain.
Bad Willow is still a little bit OP in most cases. Though we do discover that the rain wasn't so much...
It's not connected to Willow.
Yeah, not really much connected to Willow.
No. Willow has not got OP yet. Willow will become OP. This is nothing. She just lights a fire. Because Xander lacks the culinary skills of a caveman.
Yeah.
Which is a line that I love.
Oh well, what can you do?
Elsewhere, two men deliver a large crate to a residence, but when they drop it, a clawed hand breaks through the wood and attacks one of the men. Also, now apparently there's just a castle in Sunnydale. I don't remember that. That's not important, though. Don't worry about it.
That's fine.
Giles has Willow start scanning books into a computer so that they can use the resource, so that they can be resources for the gang to use. He then tells her that he's going back to England because it seems he is no longer needed by Buffy or the Scoobies.
The sadness.
While patrolling, Buffy is confronted by a vampire who condenses from mist. He introduces himself as Count Dracula. When she tries to stake the legendary vampire, he disappears. Xander and Willow arrive to see Dracula. I'm going to say it like that all the time.
Dracula.
Before he turns into a bat and flies away. Because of course he does.
It's one of Dracula's main shticks.
The women discuss how amazing Dracula is, and Riley and Xander both express their jealousy towards the infamous Dark Prince. Willow makes a lame attempt to attract attention to Giles and his usefulness, but the gang seems oblivious.
Yeah, very much so.
It's so good.
If only we had someone to, look up this information.
It's so good. As Xander is walking home alone, he encounters Dracula. Using his mysterious charms, the vampire persuades Xander to be his aide and lure the Slayer to him.
Yes, master.
So good. Riley asks Spike about Dracula, but the former commander is warned that Dracula is too dangerous for him to take on alone. Buffy awakens to find Dracula in her bedroom. Joyce had earlier invited him into their home. An important point.
Yeah, really.
She is helpless against his powers and unable to stop him from biting her. But when she wakes the next morning, she hides the puncture marks on her neck with a scarf. Later, the gang discusses their plan of attack. Buffy seems distracted, and upon hearing about the truths of Dracula, she leaves abruptly. Riley follows her and forces her to take the scarf off to show the puncture marks on her neck. Everyone is shocked to see that she has been under the control of Dracula. Since Xander is under Dracula's power, He has a strange hunger for spiders and attempts to defend the...
And other bugs.
And other bugs, yes. To defend the powerful vampire to his friends. Xander volunteers to have Buffy stay safely at his place. Willow and Tara use magic to protect this summer's home. And Giles and Riley go after Dracula. Anya complains about not being able to go after Dracula herself, until Xander locks her in the closet. Xander takes the willing slayer to his master in hopes of getting immortality in return. After being left alone with Dracula, Buffy tries to take control and stake him, but he is easily able to make her put her stake down. Giles and Riley discover Dracula's castle, remarking how they've never noticed it before and enter carefully. Dracula talks to Buffy about all the things he will do for her while she struggles to regain control of herself. Xander tries to stop Riley from going after Dracula, but Riley knocks him down with one punch.
Because, of course, it's Xander. Out of all the particular minions he could have picked, it had to be Xander.
Well, I mean, Xander would be the easiest to manipulate.
True, but still, there's only so much that can be done. About as much as he could have done was done before he got knocked out.
Giles finds himself victim to the three sisters, who effectively keep him distracted.
Yes.
Dracula offers his blood to Buffy, and she hesitantly takes a drink. A flash of memories allows Buffy to break his control over her. Riley rescues Giles from the vampire sisters, although Giles is reluctant to leave.
Oh, drop my shoe. Better go get
back. And they go to save Buffy. Buffy and Dracula fight in a vicious battle. And finally, Buffy stakes him. After they leave, Dracula comes back from the dust. Buffy is there and stakes him again, knowing he would come back. Dracula attempts to reform again, but is reminded by Buffy that she is standing right here. He slips away in his mist form. Buffy talks to Giles, telling him that she wants to be the Slayer again, to learn about her duties and her future. She asks Giles to be her watcher again, and Giles is pleased. Buffy comes home and announces to her mom that she's going out with Riley. As she enters her room, she finds a girl there going through her stuff. Joyce tells Buffy that she will have to take her sister with her if she goes out, to which both girls immediately complain, "Mom!"
This is new.
Welcome to the sibling plotline of the story.
Yes. So, we get introduced to Dawn. Very briefly.
No, kind of in the stupidest, briefest, and kind of, oh, and just so you know, sort of way. Which I wasn't surprised, because the hints and whatnot that were dropped.
Yeah, they've dropped a lot of hints that this is coming.
But, yeah, it was kind of like, oh right, you were going to be in this. Oh, we're just going to have so much fun trying to stop myself from grabbing the sharp implements.
Dawn will grow on you.
No. Maybe, we'll have to see.
You might not like her at first, but I think Dawn will grow on you.
Well, they can go the one way or they could go the other way, but we'll have to kind of see how that goes. But on whole, with the entire episode, it turned out pretty good.
It is a fun episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it had Dracula in it.
Dracula.
Yeah.
Yes. So, there's a moment where, I think it's in this episode, where Xander and Willow are walking, and Willow says something like, "What if somebody has a secret that they're not supposed to tell, but they really want to tell?" And Xander's like, "Willow, everybody knows about you and Tara."
Yeah. Just before they meet up
Which
with
is
Dracula.
totally not, like, them just being, like, a little poke to the network, being like, everybody figured this shit out.
They figured it out. Ha ha ha.
I love that. It's such a good little way that they're just, like, poking the network, just like, idiots.
Oddly enough, I didn't see it that way, because, I mean, I'm watching it, in today?
Yep.
Not then.
Oh, I just saw it because I'm like, why else would you include that line?
I guess, yeah.
Like,
No, it kind of works either way, as
Yeah,
I sort of see it with both
it does.
ways. But it's kind of a case of Willow doesn't like keeping secrets and wants to tell somebody else
Yeah.
about it, but Xander's kind of like...
And Xander's
Willow-
being dumb.
Xander's being Xander.
yeah, well, of course,
Yeah.
But it was definitely interesting with how they decided to show Dracula. With, on the one hand, this guy being intimidating. They don't show Dracula as typical vampires or even higher end bad guy vampires as it is. It's kind of the first introduction of Spike when he was first introduced.
Yeah, so Spike comes in and he's a badass. Mm-hmm. Dracula doesn't really come across as a badass, though.
But as more so a threat of what he can do.
Yeah, he's a threat, but he's not portrayed as, like... Spike was, like, a physical threat. Dracula really isn't presented as a physical threat to Buffy, in a way.
More so a psychological, just with his methods and other sorts of things.
Like,
but
he has his fancy tricks.
But I think the interesting thing was a little bit of story and lore that they've sort of thrown behind this with Anya and Spike's perspective of him.
I love how him and Spike are rivals. Like, that's so perfect.
That makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense, because Spike would piss everybody off. And it's just such a good little thing.
And just with Anya's experiences with him being like, oh, I'd never have a chance dating him. I was so young, like 700 or so. But he did compliment me on one of the curses I did.
He still owes me $11.
I love Spike. He still owes me money. Oh, Spike. It's my favorite. It's my favorite vampire on the show. So, do you guys have any questions about where we might be headed in Season 5?
Not really. I mean, sure, it'll probably have to do with Dawn in some aspect.
Dawn will be a major player in the season.
Yeah, I gather that, but I question, is Dracula ever going to come back?
I don't believe so.
Okay, because, I mean, it showed him trying to reform yet again. I was just wondering if he would actually just reform again.
He might come back as, like, a form that the first evil takes or something. But I don't think he comes back as, like, I don't remember him ever having another full episode.
Okay. I don't really expect that, I guess, but just wondering, I guess.
Yes. So, originally, this wasn't going to be Dracula. It was just going to be some other vampire. Until they'd, like, written the first draft and they took it to Joss Whedon and he's like, why don't you use fucking Dracula? It's public domain. We can just use Dracula.
That works.
It's like, yeah, sure. How is Dracula?
Yes. So, this begins our journey into Season 5. Season 5 will be... Well, it'll be a time.
The fun time, the action time, all the emotions.
A fun, not so fun time.
It will have some really great action set pieces. It'll have some really fun episodes. And it'll have episodes that, well, let me just say now, make sure you buy an extra large box of Kleenex.
So kind of a nice little mix, or one of those, hey, everything's all nice up and somewhat down, and oh, there's the sheer cliff.
Oh, there's a sheer cliff. It's called episode 16.
Duly noted.
The body. Anyway, until then, yes, next week we'll be speaking about the episode Real Me. Buffy's having trouble getting along with her sister Dawn, who is kidnapped by Harmony's gang. Yes, Harmony has a gang. Harmony makes 2 inept attempts on Buffy's life, but fails each time, and Dawn is saved.
Yay!
But Harmony's back!
Whether or not that's a supposed good thing, I'm not too sure.
Harmony's back and she has a gang.
Yeah.
And that's good. How can that not be good? So anyway, until next time, I'm Paul.
I'm Dave.
And I'm Justin.